Hi, my name is Sabrina from the Friend Family Homestead, and today we're going to do another garden talk. I really wanted to do this video out in the garden, but it is still very, very cold here where we are in Indiana. It is actually, let me see. Ooh, okay, so not that bad. It says that it feels like 34, but I couldn't handle it out there. So we're in the house again, and today we're not at our kitchen, but we are in our formal dining room here, so I invite you guys in. The first video that we uploaded talking about gardening was a video just to kind of help maybe the people that are starting gardening and wanted to think about, you know, like what's the best way for them to garden, whether that be in pots or raised garden beds, you know, the space, the sunlight, all of that. But in today's video, we are going to be talking about the garden in a different way. So if you already have your garden up and running, if you have pots with soil in them, grow bags, raised beds, if you're growing in the ground, all of that. And a lot of the stuff that I will mention today, I'm going to like vaguely touch on the topics, but it's really so that you guys can take notes and you guys will be able to go back later on and do a little bit more research on your own time. So let's get to it. One of the first things that I want to get started with is this instrument right here. It is called a soil tester, and this is a three-way soil tester. It tells you the moisture, how moist your soil is, the pH balance of your soil, so whether your soil is alkaline or acidic, and how much light you are getting. I really love this tool. I'll kind of show it a little bit closer. There's a little meter in there. And I find this tool very helpful. One, because, you know, if you are growing a variety of different things like we are, it is very important and nice to be able to see, okay, is my soil alkaline or acidic? What do I need to add to it to amend the soil, and all of that. So I don't often recommend going out and buying specific items, because I like to tell people, like, you can grow food and garden with like the least amount of money spent as possible. But this, I will say that I highly recommend a soil tester, and it's approximately like $13 at your local hardware store. So moving on from there, after you know whether your soil is alkaline or acidic, then you'll be able to kind of tell like what you want, what do you need to add to that. First things first, every season that we go into growing, we have to fill our beds back up. And really, even if you don't have beds and you're growing just straight in the earth, I suggest that you still find possibly a local composter, so someone who has a farm and they use like their animal bedding and their animal you know, waste in their compost, because that's like the most natural and healthiest compost that you can get. I mean, yes, and it'll be like if you have a bigger space, it'll be a little bit cheaper to buy local compost from someone than to go out to your Lowe's or Home Depot and buy like bags of soil. That can kind of get expensive. But every year I suggest people put or add in more compost and soil, because the crops that you grew the year before, if you don't know, they actually eat a lot of the soil, the roots. So our beds are pretty low. We'll go in and we'll fill those. I'll let that rest for a couple days, and then I'll come back to it and I'll use my handy dandy soil tester just to see where we are, if we're, you know, kind of neutral in soil, or if we're more alkaline or more acidic. And in that case, depending on if we're alkaline or acidic, either side, I will go ahead and add like fresh compost to that, such as like wood chips or like dried leaves that maybe you had from the season before that's kind of like around in your beds and stuff, that you can kind of collect and put in there, just to bring that pH level back to a neutral standing. Now, with amending your soil, I don't suggest you start working with your soil until about 6 inches of it is good and soft and like workable, because what you don't want to do is go in when it's still pretty frozen and disturb like everything that's going on and still dormant in the soil. So just wait until it warms up a little bit more, until we have like, you know, maybe 40-50 degree nights, and at least 6 inches of that soil is really good, soft and workable. But to amend the soil, some of the things that you can add again is like fresh compost. And when I say fresh compost, I'm talking like kitchen scraps, things like leaves, things that really break down quickly and that do not burn. So I would not add, like if you have chickens, I wouldn't add the chicken beddings directly to that. I would just take that to a different composting area and let that compost for several months before adding that to your beds. But one thing that I like to add is bone meal. And bone meal increases the amount of phosphorus in your soil, and that phosphorus is very essential for all of your plants to start flowering. So like if you're growing tomatoes and your tomatoes are, you know, a few feet high and you're just not seeing as many blooms or blossoms on that tomato plant as you would like to see, you can go ahead and amend your soil by adding a little bit more bone meal to that. That'll increase the blossoms and essentially increase the amount of fruit that comes from that plant. The second thing that you can add to your soil to amend it is bone meal. And blood meal. Sorry, we already talked about bone meal, but blood meal is very important for your soil because it adds nitrogen. And we know that our plants love nitrogen in the soil because all plants have leaves, and nitrogen really helps to increase the lush green foliage of your plants. So that's how you know, like for your leafier greens like salad mix, if you're growing kale, if you're growing collards, if you're growing anything that's leafy and green, you definitely want to make sure that you're adding that blood meal just so that it is getting the right amount of nitrogen. One other thing that people generally don't think about amending their soil with is sand. Some things like root vegetables have a hard time growing if you have like super hard clay or firm soil. So one thing that you can always amend your soil with is sand, and you can get that from your local hardware store just in a bag, but it really helps to add to like the area that you know you're going to grow carrots in, or beets, or turnips, or even potatoes. You can add a little bit of sand to that, and then of course on every on every case it will be different. If your soil is super hard and clay, you might need to, you know, amend it with a little bit more sand. If your soil is not that hard, but you think that it could be a little bit softer, if it has a lot of rocks in it and you want to kind of get those rocks out and, you know, shuffle it all with a little bit of sand just to make sure you have some nice carrots and beets, that is another thing that I always suggest people to amend their soil with. See how you can add sand in there. Let's see. We can talk about fertilizing. And when I talk about fertilizing, I am not talking about like chemical blends that you can get at the stores these days. I'm talking about like if you go fishing with your family, you can use the leftover of the fish, like the bones, the heads, the things that you don't eat. You can use that, put it in a bucket with some water, leave it for like 24 to 48 hours, and you have a great fish emulsion fertilizer that you didn't have to pay for because you simply took what you had waste from your fishing experience and you're reusing that, repurposing that into your garden. Another thing that I love to fertilize our garden with is worm castings. Last year I talked a lot about worm castings on our Facebook page and just shared that with people because it was something that was new to me, that I absolutely loved. And if you don't know, worm castings is the poop of the worm, which is completely natural, completely organic, and it's something that happens in nature on its own. However, if you maybe are, you know, starting, this is like your second year growing or second season growing, you might not have a lot of worms. So a good thing that you can do is just go out and buy worm castings. I suggest that you find a OMRI certified, and that's OMRI listed product, because then you know that it is organic and all of the ingredients in that would be organic. The other way that you can fertilize your beds and your plants is if you are raising animals such as backyard chickens. I mean, many may not be raising goats, but if you have goats, you can also compost their bedding and their waste, and, you know, let that sit for months to a year in some cases, depending on how big that pile is, and that can then return back into your garden bed. And then the other way, which is a nice, quick, and easy way that everyone can compost, is by saving your kitchen scraps. So I tell people anything that is leafy, green, vegetable-wise, fruit-wise, I would add to the compost. I would not compost any of your meat scraps, because that takes a lot longer to break down, one, and then it does invite predators in, and so some of the animals that'll start scratching around in your beds and stuff like that, wanting to get that meat, will come. And if you have backyard animals, or, you know, other animals that you leave outside, that could be a problem. So compost or save all of the kitchen scraps, but no meat. No meat. And once you do that, you can take that bin or bowl from kitchen scraps each week, and then you can put them in a bin outside in your garden, and all of that will break down, and in turn it creates soil. One of the biggest things that we know, and that I like to tell people, is that the Lord only made the soil that's here. So now is our job to continue to make soil for the things that we need soil for. And the way that we can do that is simply taking our food waste and composting it and turning it into soil, which is like really cool that happens in that way. So yeah, so look, let me not get to rambling, because like I said, I'm known to ramble. Okay, so once you have all that, you have like your soil warmed up, you've tested it, you've amended it, you know if it's alkaline or acidic, or if it's neutral. Neutral soil is really good soil to grow in. But once you have gotten to that point, once you have gotten to that point, you're pretty much all set. You can, if the weather is warm enough for you to direct sow some of the things that you need to direct sow, such as like peas, green beans, carrots, beets, turnips, things like that. You can get to planting those. Your soil is warm, it's at the level that it needs to be at. You're ready to go for the season. And while all that's happening and you're amending outside, waiting on your soil or the outside temperature to heat up, for your other plants, they should be inside on your grow racks, and they shall be growing and just, you know, getting ready to be planted outside. But yeah, so that's all I had for you guys today. And I hope that this really helps get you guys going and on the right track for this upcoming growing season. I know that we are very, very excited here at the Homestead on this growing season, and just all the wonderful things that we plan to grow. And I will definitely be keeping you guys updated on that. I'm thinking that we will definitely do like some weekly garden tours, because I think that would be just so fun to be able to document like what grows successfully, and also to share like what we have a hard time with. Again, I hope that you guys are making those lists and checking them twice on what you're planning on growing this year, getting those seeds started on the right dates and the right times. And even I hope that you guys are looking for local nurseries that you guys can support this year and buy those seed starts, that you're not going to start from seed, and all of that good stuff. So I want to leave you guys with a little nugget, because last time I left you guys with a little nugget with my tea. And today, again, I was like, what a perfect, like, quote to go from. So today's quote says, plant kindness and gather love. So I absolutely love that. Plant kindness and gather love. And I mean, honestly, like when I'm out in my garden planting and growing, I just feel the love. Like it's such a humbling and fun experience. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that you all continue to plant kindness and gather love. All right, until next time. Oh, please, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like content like this, give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment on some questions that you may have that was not covered in this video, or even just questions in general. We will have some more sit-down talks before the growing season actually moves out to the garden. But yeah, the next video will be on seed starting. I'm planning on starting some seeds today. So I'll see you then. Bye.